I think what we're generally saying is you can actually reduce the speed. Sorry, increase the speed.
Yes.
Of the transaction.
Yeah.
If you start with the vendor instructing from the off, let's just kick off there. We can't really go down the survey route, which would be nice because I actually think that would make so much sense.
You can if you sit down and work it out. I think if we could sit down and kind of go, right, this is what we're going to do, vendor surveys are a really good idea. Yeah. Because like you say, they learn things up front, and a lot of these defects are, the pointing needs redoing on your roof and little bits and pieces. So they could go, okay, well, we'll do that. We'll use a reputable contractor. We'll get the receipts for it and then we'll show it that way. Yeah. And I think that would really work then if you did it that way. And it shows commitment from the vendor as well, because they've spent £500, £600, £700 on a survey to get their house moving.
And I think commitment's one of the fears people have on either side, isn't it? Like you said about Dave's parents, is that at any point someone can pull out. Yeah. But if they're going down the route of, I'm going to get all of this done, I'm going to make my house marketable, and I'm also going to make sure that I price it in a way that's going to attract the most amount of demand, I think that's a really good starting point. Yeah. I do think surveying at the beginning of the transaction is key, because the later you leave it, the more nervous you could feel, because at the end of the day, you might have someone that says all of the right things, but actually when it comes to it, it's quite the opposite. Yeah. So that management of expectations.
Just to add on top of that, the majority of the solicitors, when they send their file off for review, for sign off for exchange, will say, they haven't had a survey. Tell them to get a survey. So you just have to have that conversation with buyers early on about, are you getting a survey or not? Yeah. You know, I think it's really important because, we discussed earlier that the majority of buyers don't get a survey, but the majority of my pipeline of buyers do get surveys.
Which is bizarre, because if you're going out to buy a car, you wouldn't just go, okay, I'll have it, please. You'd ask to see the service history. It's so low. And I think there's a lot of distrust in the survey sector because everything is so padded out and we're covering ourselves. And I see it so often online. I get pop-ups on Facebook of all these kind of people who've bought a house and they're going, it's got this wrong with it. And they say, did it not come up in the survey? They're not worth the paper they're written on. Yeah.
That must bloody furious.
Yeah, and it's difficult to do that fine line of, there is damp, and I'm not just going to put, there's a bit of damp, but it's nothing. You can't write that down. No. You've got to say, okay, there is damp, because it could be worse. You could have dry rot. You could have woodworm. Yeah.
So there's like, it feels like there's 5 or 6 things agents should take away from this episode, because it's obviously not a debate. We're not fighting with each other. We're all in this together, which is one of the points, actually, having your conveyancer that communicates.
Yes.
Having a mortgage broker that communicates, having a surveyor that communicates, a sales progressor that communicates. Those people are part of the team that the seller and the buyer should be working with.
Yeah, it's so important.
That proactivity, because I would imagine you were proactive back in the day.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if you weren't.
And I always remember our old surveyors that would come in, and Mark and the old chap would come in. I can't remember his name. He was brilliant.
David Lowther,
he was my mentor, when I started.
I remember David, he'd come in, he'd have a good old moan.
Yeah.
He was a really nice bloke. Cup of tea, have a cup of tea.
But a lot of surveyors don't want to work with the agent. Well, a lot of surveyors, we're not allowed to work with the agent, really. Our client is the buyer. We're completely different. I can't come in and go, by the way, that house is really damp, there's a hole in the roof. There are surveyors out there, I've seen, there's a company who offer almost a certificate after the survey's done that is shared with the vendor to say, you've had this survey done, this is what's wrong with your house. Here's what's wrong, here's the certificate. And they show that, and I can't remember the exact way they do it, but it's this product they've designed, and I think it's a great idea, because
we need to look at that.
I go in someone's house, I'm in there for a few hours, poking things, prodding things, and I go, bye. What's wrong with my house? Can't tell you. You're not my client. It's a really odd thing to be doing.
It must be an awkward situation, actually, sometimes,
Definitely. I've always found it really weird.
I've never thought about that. 30 years in the industry. So, you're coming round to basically, and I think sellers are suspicious.
Yeah, I'm coming around to find things wrong with your house. Yeah. And I'm not going to tell you any of it. Unless there's a safety hazard, and I will. Yeah. So, silly things like, you've got a loose live wire over there. But that's not how it works. But it is a very bizarre thing, which is why actually the vendor survey makes more sense.
And sorry.
Yeah, I've done kind of when someone's buying buying the house as the tenant.
Yeah.
I did one the other day. They're a right to buy tenant, and they started off, right, let me show you all the damp.
Yeah.
Let me show you all the mould. There's a hole in the roof up there. All these things they were pointing out.
Yeah.
Because if they were the vendor, they wouldn't be doing that.
No.
Yeah.
But then I can talk to them about the things I find. Like if the tenant lives there, I say, look, come and have a look. The bath seals are leaking. This is going to be in my report. You're going to read this.
Yeah.
It's so much easier than being in a house for someone I'm not working for. It's really, really odd.
Totally. And if you were to go, were you going to say something?
I was going to say that I was looking at the statistics before I came here as to what percentage of surveys ended up in price renegotiation, remedial works or fall through. And I couldn't find an exact figure. There was a few different statistics ranging between 60 to 80% of surveys end up. So that for a vendor is
it's a big
quite,
deal.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot more than the fee, isn't it?
Well, it is.
As an
It's
estate
huge.
agent, generally speaking.
It's huge. So I think this is why I thought that vendor surveys were a good idea, because I think it's about protecting the price. Because when a survey's done, it's after you've agreed a price. The vendor has already re-agreed their onward purchase, or if they're not buying onwards, they've spent, mentally spent their money elsewhere and budgeted and things like that. So to then be knocked by, let's say, 20,000, they've got to find that somewhere.
Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, so to get a survey up front, you're protecting yourself from that situation.
Yes.
So it seems to me the investment in a survey is a lot less than getting knocked by 20,000 by a buyer survey.
Because a lot of buyers will then go, oh, well, I didn't realise this, and actually it's only £1,000 worth of work, and they want 10 grand off.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you've had it before where buyers will get a survey and then use that to renegotiate.
Yeah.
And I've had people ring me and say, what bits of this survey can I use to knock the price down?
Yeah.
And I had a chap ring me and say those exact words. I went, there's none of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it.
I found a website a few days ago of a surveying firm in London that it's like a sales pitch to buyers. Use us and we'll help you renegotiate the price 5 to 10%. Yeah, it's awful. I was reading it and I was like, I hope that this...
See, that's such the wrong approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
And opposite to what we're talking about with the certificate and giving that reassurance to the clients entering into the marketplace.
It almost needs to become something that the buyers and the vendors do together. And I don't know how that would be done, but I know this company who do the certificate of, I can't remember what they call it, but it is basically being able to disclose what I found to the vendor, because I've had it before where the agents have rung me and said the buyers have pulled out, what was wrong? And I said, well, you'll have to speak to the buyer. They said they won't tell us anything. They won't give any reasons. So then you don't then know when you put that house back on.
I always find that though, that sort of buyer really annoys me.
Yeah.
Because I think there's what you've pulled out. We're not trying to persuade you to buy it.
Yeah, it's true.
But if you were selling your house and your buyer had a survey and they then pulled out and then they said they're not willing to tell you what was wrong with your house, how would you feel?
Yeah,
it's difficult, isn't it? I had one where the agent rang me and said the woman's pulled out. I went, the only negative thing on the survey, this house was immaculate. There was a wasp's nest, an old wasp's nest in the loft.
It's not even alive.
And she pulled out and she said, oh, loads of things come up on the survey. And I was like, obviously I can't tell you what's in the survey, but the only negative thing I found was a wasp's nest.
That's because she just wanted to pull out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say that. But, question for you. If you did a buyer's survey and something came up, the buyer withdrew, if the vendor approached you and said they'd like to pay you for your advice, could you then share your findings with them?
I'd have to do a whole new survey with terms and conditions. I think a lot of vendors try and buy the survey off of the buyer, but then they've got no liability because my survey was for that client.
Okay.
So they then can't come back. But I have done it before where the vendors then bought the survey because these people have spent £700 and found out that there's a few things wrong. Which is almost why the vendor surveys would be a good idea, because then people can repair the issues. And if there's big issues like you've got damp, they get the further investigations done. They get the damp specialist out and they do a whole damp survey. So it would be a great idea to do the vendor surveys purely for the vendor's knowledge more than to share with the buyers. So they know what's wrong or what's not wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
And my thought process around this. So when you do, this is a question for you, when you do level 3 surveys, Do you always have a costing schedule with a level 3 survey?
It doesn't have to be included.
Doesn't have to be.
I personally don't do costings because they can just vary so much.
Yeah.
And when we had our new roof,
it's like a can of worms, isn't it?
Yeah, we got quoted between £7,000 and £18,000 for our new roof.
Yeah.
Well, people usually go with the middle, don't they? But it's now optional in a level 3 survey.
Yeah. So that was my thought process. If a vendor's getting a survey and there are things that need attention,
it would be good to actually have them included.
Buyers would need a number, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Like how much is
I
this
like
gonna
to
cost
advise
me?
people based on my own experience, and I'll always say that. So when I speak to a buyer after the survey, I say, look, the roof's going to need replacing. I recently had mine done. It cost X. Yeah. You would maybe be expecting roughly this, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
When it's written down, you've got a lot more comeback, haven't you?
Yeah,
It didn't cost £10,000, it cost 20.
Yeah,
It cost 12.
True. Yeah. True.
So just coming back to the final points, really, which are helping agents understand where they can speed up the process. Touched on a few ideas which we as agents can control.
Yeah.
Are there any other ones that we've missed? I mean, I think other than being proactive and personally, one of the things I used to do, and you probably do with your ladies, your clients you getting them to chase stuff.
Yeah.
And to be proactive is obviously a given, but I think sometimes people aren't asked of that. Yes. If that makes sense.
Yeah, we certainly do that. We certainly get people involved. If we're struggling, sometimes, I don't know, for example, if a mortgage broker won't respond to us because we're not their client, then we get the buyer involved and things like that. I think it's using all of your resources, but I think the main thing is communication between everybody. Communication will change transactions.
What about having a time frame finally at the start of it? Like, we've just agreed the sale. Your buyers all got there. Obviously, we've got to go through AML, checks, all of that kind of malarkey. That's great, isn't it? Years ago, used to be like, well, we're going to exchange contracts by this time. And it will go on the memo of sale. It was like, there's a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
What a good idea. I think that sounds like it's disappeared.
Yeah. There are still, I would say probably about 20% of the memos we get through still have timeframes on them.
New builds?
No, agent.
Okay.
Estate agent memos.
Should we do more of it?
But I think sometimes I think a realistic time scale, because usually the time scale is like 6 to 8 weeks. And okay, if you've got a cash buyer buying a chain-free property, no problem, 6 weeks, no problem. But if you've got a buyer that's selling a property, they need a mortgage, your seller's buying onwards, you're not going to get it through within 6 to 8 weeks. So I think being realistic, because the problem with setting those timescales on a memo is once you go past that timescale,
stress.
You can't set another one because you've missed the previous one, so it means nothing.
Fair enough.
Do you know what I mean? So I think realistic.
Take that one off the list.
Well, no, I do think realistic timescales is helpful.
Yeah.
But I think it has to be realistic for each situation. I don't think you can put a blanket. We're going to put 8 to 10 weeks on every memo. I think it needs to be specific to the situation of that property and agreed between all parties, so they know what they're agreeing to, not just put on a memo. Because I think a lot of it is just put on the memo without communication between
you've
buyer
also
and
got
seller.
those buyers at the top of the chain who are still looking.
Yes.
Those scenarios are all quite different, aren't they?
But I do think it's a good idea. It just needs to be done correctly.
I'm full of good ideas. Yeah. Just got to implement it.